Continuing from the previous chapter, Xiao Yan unleashed the unprecedented Lotus of Desolation, a fusion of 22 different types of heavenly flames. At the instant when the 22-colored lotus seed took shape, Xiao Yan's body trembled. He lowered his head to gaze at the small lotus seed in his hand and murmured softly, "It's done." As soon as he spoke, his face turned ashen. The confusion in his eyes vanished suddenly, and almost reflexively, he hurled the 22-colored lotus seed toward the three-winged unicorn, which was still in shock. The exquisitely colored lotus seed, containing 22 different hues, slipped from Xiao Yan's palm. Under the influence of his controlled strength, it silently streaked through the void without causing even the slightest rustle. Yet, despite its light and airy trajectory, the sight of it caused the pure white scales of the three-winged unicorn to bristle in alarm. The lotus seed, a masterpiece of 22 heavenly flames, shot rapidly towards the three-winged unicorn. The space it traversed seemed almost stagnant. However, just as it was about to enter within 100 meters of its target, the previously calm outer ring of the lotus suddenly grew turbulent. The lotus seed contracted and expanded before swelling up dramatically, followed by an earth-shattering explosion erupted uncontrollably in the void above. Boom! 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 Devastating energy waves spread out from the explosion, causing the once serene void to ripple violently. A towering peak in the distance was caught within the expanding ripples, shattering explosively, its jagged remnants as smooth as a mirror. Even the cascading waterfalls far in the distance seemed to freeze in time. Their flows halted entirely, as if the very fabric of time had stopped. Thousands of miles away from the magical Beast Mountain range, in two opposite directions, several streaks of light racing through the sky suddenly came to a halt. They raised their heads in unison, gazing toward the unreachable horizon. One face, wrinkled like tree bark, and another, exquisitely beautiful, were both filled with shock and disbelief. How is this possible? Xiao Yan? Yuru sensed the violent fiery energy filling the sky and immediately realized that Xiao Yan was in trouble. Her beautiful eyes flickered slightly. This kid is never at peace. What's he up to now? Bai Su, in a luxurious room within the Alchemist Association, also lifted his gaze toward the horizon where a terrifying mushroom cloud of energy loomed over the magical Beast Mountain range. Boom! 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 The terrifying Lotus of Desolation, a fusion of 22 types of heavenly flames, exploded in the azure sky like a fiery god descending to the mortal realm, sweeping across the heavens. In an instant, the temperature of this entire world skyrocketed. As the Lotus of Desolation neared the three-winged unicorn, a fearsome energy exploded forth. One so powerful that even a 5-star Do-D expert would find it difficult to handle. The explosion of the Lotus of Desolation formed a mushroom cloud that drew the attention of the entire magical Beast Mountain range. In Qing City, countless people stood in stunned silence, their eyes fixed on the terrifying waves of flame sweeping across the sky. Despite the vast distance separating them from the source, the scorching heat made them sweat profusely, as if they were standing in a molten inferno. In the azure sky, the fiery waves surged outward in a mushroom cloud shape. At the explosion's epicenter, all living beings within the surrounding area suffered devastating blows. The small forest where Xiao Yan had been was now completely unrecognizable. The distant waterfalls had also ceased their flow, losing all trace of movement under the terrifying destructive force of the Lotus of Desolation. Who could have imagined that the Lotus of Desolation, born from a fusion of 22 heavenly flames, would be this terrifying? Flames continued to spread outward from the explosion center, the mushroom cloud dispersing in all directions. Wherever the flames reached, nothing was left alive. Even the earth radiated intense heat. The massive three-winged unicorn, being closest to the explosion, bore the brunt of the destructive fiery waves. The creature's once beautiful, snow-white fur was almost entirely burned away, revealing its charred black body beneath. Crimson blood oozed from its wounds, dripping like rain. Its shattered body was covered in terrifying gashes visible to the naked eye, stretching across its entire back. Upon closer inspection, one could even faintly see the glint of its white bones. When Xiao Yan first formed the Lotus of Desolation, the three-winged unicorn had immediately sensed a deadly aura. It was about to flee when Xiao Yan's sudden soul attack stalled its final escape, or else, with its speed, evading the Lotus of Desolation would have been a simple task. Once the three-winged unicorn regained its senses, the terrifying Lotus of Desolation was already upon it. It hurriedly flapped its 3 pairs of wings while the horn on its forehead began to emit a formidable power, enveloping its entire body in protective energy. The horn on the three-winged unicorn's forehead was reputed to be the most robust and protective of all. Yet even so, under the assault of Xiao Yan's Lotus of Desolation, all 3 pairs of its snow-white wings were ripped off, blood streaming from their stumps like a creek. Even the horn on the unicorn's forehead began to emit cracking sounds. By now, the three-winged unicorn's face was twisted in agony, its massive, beastly eyes devoid of their earlier arrogance, replaced by pure, unadulterated terror. Its once proud demeanor was completely shattered. As for Xiao Yan, his clothes were nearly destroyed. Although he had created the Lotus of Desolation himself, the power of this thing was too fearsome. It was his first time fusing so many flames, and he lacked the experience to control it fully. As he looked at his skin, now singed and releasing faint wisps of smoke, Xiao Yan panted heavily, hastily consuming pills from his storage ring as if they were worthless. As the numerous pills entered his mouth, they transformed into streams of pure energy, continuously nourishing Xiao Yan's severely injured body. After tending to himself, he lifted his gaze back to the sky, focusing intently on the center of the mushroom cloud, where the three-winged unicorn had been. Damn human brat. Damn lunatic. You're insane. I hate fighting against madmen like you. If it weren't for the fact that you have some connection with that girl, I would have killed you by now. In the distance, the three-winged unicorn finally regained its clarity. Sensing the severe injuries within its body, it shivered, cursing loudly. The beast knew well that if Xiao Yan hadn't been using the terrifying Fire Lotus for the first time, which affected his accuracy and control, it would not doubt that it would have been severely wounded, leading to a drastic decline in power, or worse, death on the spot. Looking at the three-winged unicorn, still wounded, but seemingly possessing some strength, Xiao Yan's expression darkened. The remaining Do Qi within him flowed slowly, ready to counter any sudden moves from the enraged beast. However, just as Xiao Yan was bracing himself for another battle, the three-winged unicorn, after a few more curses, suddenly retracted its body and backed away from Xiao Yan. After a brief pause, the severely injured creature's body suddenly trembled, and to Xiao Yan's surprise, it turned and fled. Damn it, you monster! I can't fight you, but I can surely run. The massive three-winged unicorn darted towards the horizon with incredible speed, as if it had just seen a ghost. The human boy, before it, had endless tricks up his sleeve. Even though the three-winged unicorn did not fear Xiao Yan with its strength, it was troubled because Xiao Yan was the brother of that girl, the purple-winged angel, whose status among the angelic clan was far beyond what a mere three-winged unicorn could contend with. Thus, it had no choice but to leave in frustration. Cough, cough, cough. Xiao Yan watched as the three-winged unicorn fled. He wanted to give chase, but his own injuries forced him to sit down calmly and cross-legged, focusing on carefully treating his severely wounded body. Meanwhile, far away in Wu City, an unmissable drama was unfolding. Xiao Yan quickly tended to his internal injuries and then, with a thought, controlled a distant soul fragment. In a dark chamber within the distant Wu City, a group of people gathered. Wu Huan sat in a chair, supported by a black-clad man from earlier, alongside another burly man in gray, who radiated a terrifying aura. If Yu were here, he would surely recognize this man as the Lord of Wu City, also a 5-star Do Di. Beside them stood the Mu clan leader and Mu Lu, along with a few other shadowy figures, each exuding a dark, ominous Do Chi, creating a chilling, eerie atmosphere. In front of these men, a familiar figure was bound with multiple chains. Xiao Yan, City Lord, you were not here when we captured Xiao Yan, so we brought him to this chamber for confinement. Now that you're back, it is timely. Mu Lei respectfully addressed the man in gray, not only because he was the City Lord of Wu City, but also due to his close ties with that faction. You've done well. They say that the bloodlines of their races in the lower world have vanished. There's only one explanation. Their races have been wiped out. And from what I gather, you are the only one to emerge from the lower world's portal. So, tell us, how did your soul clan from the lower world disappear? The man in gray finished speaking, his eyes fixed fiercely on Xiao Yan. A slightly weakened Xiao Yan furrowed his brows at these words, then looked at the crowd in front of him and muttered, "How else would they disappear? I killed them all, of course." Xiao Yan's seemingly nonchalant words sent chills down the spines of the black-clad man supporting Wu Huan and those in the chamber, surrounded by dark Do Chi. Their eyes locked on a Xiao Yan with a gaze so intense, it seemed they wanted to devour him alive. "Damn brat! You dared to ruin the plans of our soul clan, cutting off our bloodline's power from the lower world," the black-clad man snarled. The Soul Clan had ascended from the Do Chi continent to the Do Di continent after becoming Do Di. But even though they had offspring and descendants on the Do Di continent, the purity of their blood was still inferior to that of the original inhabitants of the Do Chi continent. That wasn't even the most crucial issue. More importantly, they had left traces of their presence on the Do Chi continent, cultivating enough faith among its people. The immense, ceaseless power of faith continuously flowed into each of them, naturally enhancing their strength. But now, with the loss of the vast power of faith from the Do Chi continent, some of their affairs on the Do Di continent had slowed to a crawl. Damn it! Ever since the power of faith disappeared, the high-ranking members of our clan have been furious. If we can't find the culprit and another significant source of faith, I fear our plans will be delayed again. The black-clad man glared menacingly at Xiao Yan. A plan they had plotted for so many years was forced to pause midway because of a mere boy from the lower world. This was truly infuriating. Steward of the Soul Clan, please calm down. The power of faith can still be found elsewhere. Although our plan will be delayed, it's an unchangeable reality, the gray-clad man interjected. However, I am very curious. The Soul Clan in the lower world was said to have no chance of advancing to Do Di, so how could this boy? Bound by chains. Xiao Yan realized that the dark chains wrapped around him were continuously eroding his Do Chi, and even his life force. This significant discovery made Xiao Yan take things more seriously. Moreover, what was this power of faith and plan that the so-called steward of the Soul Clan mentioned? "Nothing is impossible," he replied slowly, suppressing the doubts in his heart. "It seems your tongue is quite stubborn. But it doesn't matter if you don't speak. Once you're dead, everything will be clear." At that time, Mu Lu chimed in. Clearly, Mu Lu harbored deep hatred toward Xiao Yan. After all, Mu Lu had always had an inappropriate desire for Yuru of the Yu clan. His earlier attempt to seize the Crescent Jade Fruit was also part of his future plans. Now, seeing Xiao Yan and Yuru so close made him unhappy. He stared intently at Xiao Yan. "Where is the Crescent Jade Fruit?" the black-clad man demanded. After all, it was a crucial item for their inheritance, and they might need it to deal with the Jiaoyu fairy in the future. "I ate it," Xiao Yan replied calmly. "Damn!" The black-clad man sensed Xiao Yan's body briefly, feeling a pure energy similar to that of the Crescent Jade Fruit, and began contemplating how to salvage the situation. With the disappearance of their lower world's races and the power of faith, the clan's high-ranking members were already enraged. Without obtaining this inheritance medicine, he could only imagine the fate that awaited him when he returned to the clan. Why waste words with him? Just kill him and take his soul to demonize. Since he consumed the Crescent Jade Fruit, his blood will suffice. Ensure he never escapes, Wu Huan said, his eyes filled with malice, speaking each word with an eerie emphasis. After all, his original intent for venturing into the depths of the magical Beast Mountain range was to kill Xiao Yan and seize the great fortunes upon him. But not only did he fail, he even had to use his core strength, injuring his very foundation. Hearing this, Xiao Yan quickly calculated in his mind. From what he had gathered so far, there seemed to be an unspeakable deal or conspiracy between Solomon, Wu City, the Soul Clan, and the extraterritorial Evil Clan. Bound tightly by dark chains, Xiao Yan stopped struggling. Then, at the center of his chest, a dozen exquisitely crafted lotus seeds began to rotate slowly. Ha ha ha! It's been a while since I've seen such a daring young man. I can sense the unusual nature of those flames within you. After your death, we'll gladly accept them all. The gray-clad man laughed heartily. Enough! Let's deal with him quickly. Otherwise, we won't be able to answer to those above, the black-clad man suggested. Agreed. Many voices echoed in unison within the chamber. If that's the case, let's send you to hell. Remember, don't provoke our Soul Clan again, or this will be your fate. D. The gray-clad man chuckled sinisterly, his laughter dripping with malice. He slowly gathered a terrifying black dough chi in his palm and stepped toward Xiao Yan. Then let's die together. Xiao Yan suddenly flashed a strange smile. His entire body erupted with terrifying flames, so powerful that even the dark chains could not suppress them. A dozen exquisite lotus seeds appeared within the small chamber, radiating an overwhelming aura of death that settled deep in everyone's hearts. Damn it! That brat is going to self-destruct, a startled shout echoed. This is bad, the gray-clad man and the black-clad man exclaimed in unison. Immediately, a torrent of dough chi surged from their bodies, rushing toward Xiao Yan in an attempt to resist the terrifying power of his flames. The massive black and silver dough chi from the two men surged toward Xiao Yan. Yet Xiao Yan showed no intention of dodging. With dough chi igniting, his internal power instantly reached its peak, and then he exploded. The dozens of exquisitely crafted fire lotus seeds around Xiao Yan's heart had been prepared earlier. Though their power was not as formidable as the Lotus of Desolation used against the three-winged unicorn, their might was still nothing to scoff at. After all, most of the main figures of the Mu clan, the Steward of the Soul Clan, and Wu City were all within this chamber. If these fire lotus seeds, filled with terrifying energy, were to explode here, given their close proximity, even if they didn't die, they would be severely injured. In a split second, the Lord of Wu City, Mu Lei, and the black-clad man unleashed their vast dough chi, enveloping the flames slowly blossoming from Xiao Yan's body in an attempt to isolate them. Get out of here! The Lord of Wu City shouted. The Steward of the Soul Clan couldn't comprehend how Xiao Yan, bound by his soul-binding chains, with dough chi rendered inoperative, could still condense such terrifying fire lotus seeds. A soul fragment? Mu Lei suddenly noticed something unusual about Xiao Yan and exclaimed. Without further thought, he joined the others in defending against the terrifying fiery energy. But the Steward of the Soul Clan and the black-clad man were unaware that the Xiao Yan before them was not the real Xiao Yan. At best, it was merely a fragment condensed from soul energy. However, the soul energy of those present was no match for Xiao Yan's, so even a soul fragment went unnoticed. Moreover, those terrifying fire lotus seeds had been condensed long before, even before Xiao Yan was captured and sealed by the three elders of the Mu clan. This was, unmistakably, Xiao Yan's gift to Wu City and the Mu clan. Xiao Yan's eerie smile shattered, and his entire body suddenly exploded as if it were glass breaking. The explosion of Xiao Yan's soul fragment was mostly resisted by the combined efforts of the Lord of Wu City, Mu Lei, and the Steward of the Soul Clan. However, before the three of them could even breathe a sigh of relief, a deep-seated fear surged within everyone's hearts. At the spot where Xiao Yan had exploded, dozens of exquisite lotus seeds appeared before them, and they could sense even the slightest tremor in the space around them. Boom! 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 Terrifying fire lotus seeds exploded one after another, like a chain of bombs going off incessantly. The small chamber was instantly filled with a terrifying energy. Then, with 3 loud crashes, boom, 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 the chamber exploded violently. A sky-high explosion of flames erupted from within Wu City. The immense force of the flames spread over dozens of miles, leaving the entire area reeking of scorched earth. Puff! 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 Xiao Yan, observing the distant explosion from the magical Beast Mountain range, couldn't help but smile coldly as he saw the location of Wu City engulfed in flames. A mouthful of fresh blood spurted from his mouth. Wiping the blood from the corner of his mouth, Xiao Yan grinned. Wu City had tried to use Wu Huan as an excuse to pin the blame on him, but now, this terrifying flame served as a lesson for them, a truly satisfying payback. However, Xiao Yan also frowned slightly. The explosion of the soul fragment, which was captured and sealed by the 3 elders of the Mu clan, had caused some damage to his soul. Although the soul fragment was just a fragment and not an entity condensed from soul energy. The terrifying fire lotus seeds exploded within the chamber, and the powerful blast force shattered the small chamber and shot straight up into the sky. A massive pillar of fiery energy, visible to the naked eye, shot up from within Wu City. What is this? Yu and her companions had arrived at the location of the previous explosion in the magical Beast Mountain range, but they found no trace of Xiao Yan. Helplessly, they could only gaze at the towering pillar of energy flames in the direction of Wu City, murmuring to themselves. The energy within the flames felt somewhat familiar. They glanced back at the fading explosion in the magical Beast Mountain range. This aura, it's Xiao Yan. Yuru immediately recognized the power of the flames. After all, she had ventured deep into the ruins with Xiao Yan and was quite familiar with the flame energy he wielded. That brat Xiao Yan has truly given Wu City a hefty gift, the 3rd elder remarked as he watched the enormous column of flame energy in the distance. The 3 of them looked at the terrifying pillar of flame energy, feeling the intense heat and destructive force from hundreds of miles away, let alone Wu City, which was near the explosion center. TSK, TSK, TSK. This boy really knows how to make a statement, Bai Su remarked, smiling as he looked at the massive flame energy. Wu City, one of the 7 major cities within a 100-mile radius, had always held the status of a local overlord. No one had ever dared to provoke them, and the 7 cities had always developed in relative peace. This was because Wu City's lord was a 5-star Do-D, a status that testified to the city's profound foundation. However, the Yu clan did not fear Wu City. Previously, they had refrained from interfering due to Yu's hidden ailment. Now that Yu had regained her strength, they were more than capable of contending with Wu City. As for the Alchemist Association, even Wu City wouldn't dare act rashly against them without absolute certainty, knowing full well that alchemists were not to be trifled with. This boy is indeed bold, Bai Ruo commented slowly. It's not a bad thing. This could curb Wu City's arrogance. They've been acting too overbearing, Bai Su added. But Xiao Yan has stirred up such a big mess, and now it's a life-and-death struggle with Wu City. Bai Ruo hesitated, her words trailing off. Have you forgotten? The envoy from the mystic 3 heavens is arriving in a few days. Besides, judging by the explosion's power, Wu City has suffered significant losses. They won't have the resources to deal with him for a while. Bai Su looked at the towering pillar of flame energy as he spoke. The terrifying energy fluctuations gradually subsided, but Wu City was now unrecognizable. The once grand structures of Wu City had suffered massive destruction in the terrifying explosion. Mu Le had one of his arms melted by the flames, and Wu Huan, already injured at his core, had not yet recovered when this powerful explosion struck again, resulting in his demise in this catastrophic event. The steward of the Soul Clan, Mu Le, and the Lord of Wu City were all injured to varying degrees. The power of the Fire Lotus was evident, capable of injuring even 4-star and 5-star Do-D experts. High above, a figure stared venomously into the distance, and spat out words with a venomous tone. "Xiao Yan, you little bastard! The hatred of killing my son is irreconcilable." Seeing the explosion in Wu City gradually calm down, Xiao Yan finally felt relieved. He figured Wu City wouldn't be able to trouble him anytime soon. After all, Wu City had suffered heavy losses in this explosion. The elite members of their clan had lost more than 2/3. Wu Huan's only son had perished in the explosion, and the Mu clan's elite forces had also lost nearly 1/3. All the people brought by the steward of the Soul clan, except for himself, were dead. During the explosion, the steward of the Soul clan had formed a massive protective shield using the bodies and soul power of his subordinates, which was why he suffered the least injury in the blast. "Damn brat! How dare you mock us?" the Lord of Wu City roared in anger. He reached out into thin air, and a faint, almost imperceptible aura appeared in his palm. The weak aura was Wu Huan's soul force, but unfortunately, after the recent massive explosion, it was as weak as a dying ember, flickering as if it could be extinguished at any moment. "City Lord, please calm down. Wu Huan's situation isn't entirely hopeless. According to records within our Soul clan, if we infuse him with the soul force of numerous powerful beings, Wu Huan could be reborn," the steward of the Soul clan suggested. "Is that true?" the Lord of Wu City asked, surprised. Although he didn't know what the Soul clan was up to, Wu City's prior relationship with the Soul clan had been purely cooperative, involving information exchange and certain dealings. "Rest assured, our Soul clan has no reason to deceive you," the steward replied. If that's the case, the Lord of Wu City began to consider his options carefully. Wu Huan was his only son. Although he was vengeful, he had not neglected his cultivation. In the future, Wu Huan was expected to inherit his position. After careful consideration, he agreed to the steward's proposal. After all, the so-called Soul clan was too mysterious and powerful. If they had a way to save his son, why not take advantage of it? Indeed, Lord of Wu City will need to gather a sufficient number of souls, and then the steward of the Soul clan smiled. Hearing this, the members of the Mu clan felt a chill run down their spines as the Lord of Wu City and the steward appeared to be whispering something to each other. Meanwhile, Xiao Yan, having harnessed the terrifying destructive power of the Lotus of Desolation, formed by fusing the essence of 22 different heavenly flames, was quite satisfied with the results. Following that, he used his soul fragment to exact a devastating retribution on Wu City. This series of intense maneuvers had exhausted even Xiao Yan's strength, prompting him to find a cave deep within the magical Beast Mountain range to recuperate. Inside a cave about 10 meters wide, Xiao Yan placed the enormous ancient ruler of heavenly flames before him and sat cross-legged, carefully tending to his internal injuries. As expected, the initial fusion of the essence of the 22 heavenly flames had consumed a substantial amount of soul energy. Then, using the remaining soul energy to control the distant soul fragment had drained him further. At this moment, Xiao Yan's face was pale, and his soul energy was nearly depleted. Fortunately, Xiao Yan still had a considerable supply of pills to restore his Do Qi and even his soul energy, which he used while finding a cave to recover. "Sigh, Xiao Yan, you reckless fellow. The Lotus of Desolation you fused earlier was too terrifying. If your soul energy hadn't reached the Imperial Realm mortal grade, your outcome wouldn't have been much better than that of the three-winged unicorn." His master, the Golden Dragon King, slowly flew out and spoke to Xiao Yan, who was regulating his breath. Upon hearing this, Xiao Yan chuckled. The fusion of the essence of the heavenly flames was his trump card back on the Do Qi continent, and he had to test it out on the Do Di continent as well. Thankfully, even here on the Do Di continent, the Lotus of Desolation remained a formidable trump card for him. The only drawback was that creating such a terrifying Lotus of Desolation required time.